A golden ray of light cracked the sky over the castle. He descended like lightning and filled his room for a moment. Iran rose into the air, its eyes filled with golden glow, electricity in its veins. Zeus, being in the form of pure energy, passed without touching him, small pulse in his belly. For 9 months, the castle is every night. At the time of birth, the sky is completely. The baby was born, he didn't cry, open his eyes. When he turned it on, a blue and white lightning bolt struck him, the candles in the room went out for a moment. It burned again with a blue flame. Merlin took the baby in his arms and took it on his tiny finger. A short flash of lightning jumped between them, and I said softly, "Merlin, your name will be Arthur. Sky forget you." A piece of lightning was born on the earth. Arthur saw a grandson like other children in his humble castle. To grow. The sky did not allow him to sign his first sign when he was 5 years old. It turned out that the storm over the village on a summer night was so strong that its straw. The insoles were flying off the roofs, while everyone was hiding in the basement. Arthur approached the window. The raindrops hitting his face hung in the air without touching him, as if an invisible space surrounded him. When lightning strikes, her pupils are completely white for a moment. No one could sleep that night, but Arthur slept soundly when he was 8 years old. Sword practice began. Kay knocked him down in every duel until one day Arthur got angry. The moment he was eliminated, the wooden sword in his hand was suddenly covered with a blue and white light when the blow landed. The beech shield cracked in two. It was no longer a wooden sword, it was short in its hand. For a short time, he was holding a real plasma sword. Everyone froze. Arthur was just frozen. Just mutter why this happened. At the age of 12, while wandering alone in the forest, he encountered a pack of steppe wolves. Normally, he should have escaped, but he stopped. The sky darkened when the first lightning came down. The wolves retreated. When the 2 lightning bolts hit the ground, they all lay down and slept. A faint electric field flickered around Arthur, not out of fear, but out of respect. Today he understood, even the animals knew that he was different, what he learned the most while growing up. The more he tries to be normal, the more the sky reminds him. Every time he gets angry, the wind changes direction. Every time he is afraid, the air gets hot. Every time he cries. It was raining, the same whisper in every corner of Britain. Whoever pulls the sword in the stone will be king. A giant boulder had appeared overnight. No one had seen how it came. It was as if it had fallen from the sky, and in the middle of the rock stood a sword stuck to the handle. Light blue and white sparks danced on the hilt of the air around the sword. I'm always a little cooler, a little more electrically charged by anyone on it. Words that seem unwritten but can be read by everyone. The king chosen by Zeus, who drew this sword from the stone. Kings came, nuclear came, giant warriors, knights with calloused hands. The strongest wizards, none of them could move the sword even 1 inch, some of them were frightening. He went mad with anger, some retreated out of fear, as if the sword was one with the stone. Kaya swallowed the sword and vowed not to let go again on a spring morning 15. 5-year-old Arthur stood out from the crowd. Everyone knows him. That quiet, slightly shy boy in the rector's house is a tournament sword. He forgot to replace it. He actually came there for it. He approached the stone, spat on his hand, touched the hilt, and everything changed at that moment. The sky suddenly darkened, as if someone had absorbed all the light and pulled it out, then it exploded from one place. A giant lightning bolt from the top of Arthur is like a flat white column. He hugged her, and Arthur closed his eyes. And the sword he drew and left his place with a silent crack as if saying goodbye to the stone. There was a faint burst of blue light, the blade of the sword, as if real lightning was flowing through it. It was shining like the crowd froze, the horses reared up. The wind has reversed, and the sky responds with one long noise. A thunderous thunder of glory that vibrates deeply, raised the Arthur sword into the air. When he lifted it, he danced in a spiral around the lightning sword. Everyone understood at that moment. He was the son of heaven, and the sword had shouted it. Arthur raised his head and said, "Sky." He looked at the sky, heard a very faint voice that only he could hear, "Start now." On that day, a new era began in Britain, and the sky was named after a person for the first time. Just a few months after Arthur ascended the throne, his first major battle came. The Saxon army rushed in from the shores, Arthur in front, still that old stone in his hand. He collided with the sword he drew from the stone, but the sword could not stand it and was split in two by the blow of an axe. As the piece of metal fell to the ground, sparks scattered, and the sky became silent at that moment. It was as if Zeus held his breath. Merlin was standing on the edge of the battlefield. "Look at Arthur." He looked and nodded. "Come, the real gift your father left you is waiting." Night fell. It lasted for 2 hours. They dived into the fog and reached the shore of a lake. The water was pitch black, but the surface was smooth like a mirror with the stars in the sky. Even the girls were shivering in the water there. Merlin stopped and said, "Wait now." Bebeck, the water suddenly moved and a ray of light rose from the middle. Like liquid gold, but cold and sharp light took shape. A woman appeared. Her feet did not touch the water, her hair flowed like night. Her eyes are pure lightning blue. The lady of the lake is both human in her voice. Besides, Zeus had a sound like a machine. "The child carrying the canal, your father is one for you." He sent gifts, but this sword is not just metal, it is the intensification of the fury of the heavens. He dipped his hand into the water and a sword rose from the water, Excalibur. His blade was covered in blue and white veins, as if a real river of lightning was flowing through it. Its hilt was bone white, but warm to the touch. A thin pulsating light circulated in its scabbard. Arthur's fingers tingle when he holds it. It was as if it belonged to his hand, but at the same time he felt a power that made his whole body tremble. This girl said, "Lady, she will protect you from death. There will be no bloodshed. Your wounds will heal because your dad doesn't want to lose you easily." Arthur soared into the air. At that moment, a single lightning bolt struck in the sky, right towards the tip of the sword. The light was so bright that the shadows of the surrounding trees were reversed. Arthur's eye. He squinted his eyes and looked at the sky. He heard a very faint murmur, a single word from his father. "Go and remember whose son you are." The next morning of the Saxon army. When he came across this Excalibur, when he lifted it, thunder descended with him and the enemy understood. There was no longer just a king in front of them, there was a piece of sky, Arthur with Excalibur in his hand. When he came back with Beybert, even the weather in Britain had changed. The wind was blowing cleaner, the sky was blowing clearer. The first thing it seemed higher was that the first thing I chose a place was to rise on a hill that day in the Camelot. It felt like the stones should be arranged on their own knights. Masters, farmers, blacksmiths, everyone came, some because the king ordered it. Some people said that there was something in this child. The walls rose and the towers reached to the sky. But the most striking thing is the giant built in the middle of the castle. The table was round, there was no corner, no head, no one was right to the king. Because Arthur said that everyone is equal here, I am the king. I may be king, but I have no more rights than a man sitting at the head of the table. Right in the middle of the table when each knight sits down. Something very light happened, like a small blue and white spark. It was as if he knew at the table, he was saying, "Yes, you belong here too." When Arthur first sat down at the table, everyone fell silent and Excalibur put it right in the middle of the table. The sword trembled slightly on its own, and at this moment, all the torches on the ceiling were the same. At the same time, the blue flame rang out, and he heard a very faint sound that only he could hear. "Now show me justice." That night the Camelot lights were so bright. In distant villages, people whispered to each other that a city had been built from the heavens. And it really was, because that table was not just a table made of wood. It was a promise, a dream, and that dream was for a while. It became real. Everyone sat at the same table, everyone looked at the same eye level, and the sky. For the first time, Camelot rose with a smile at what they were doing. In Arthur's heart, he found a target in the Gain, the daughter of a king named Leo Degras. The first time Tax saw it, even the sky paused, a white dress at a spring festival. Arthur proposed to Gwyn News accepted the wedding. On the wedding day, Camelot Square was full of flowers, the sky was blue, there were no clouds. It did, but on the wedding night, just as they kissed, a single lightning bolt far away. It flashed silently, no one saw it, but the sky saw it, and it was as if he was saying, "Be careful, but what comes as a dowry is much more than a table." It's the legendary compliment to the Round Table, but the real story is around the table. Not after the table. Because one day Lancelot came, and this knight from France had storms in his eyes. Arthur was carrying the smell of the seas, the waves, the depths on him. He invited the Lancer to the Round Table, and that moment is right in the middle of the table. That familiar blue and white spark appeared again, but this time a little more. It took a long time, as if this man says the table is different. Over time, something sprouted between the Lancelot and the Gain were, at first just glances. Then chance walks, then minutes spent alone in the garden, then midnight. Whispers Arthur didn't notice or didn't want to notice because he was on the Saxon frontiers at the time. On the coast of Ireland, he was fighting the tribes of the North, Excalibur with lightning in his hand. One night, he could not see another storm growing inside his heart. At the tallest tower of Camelot, Gainwar and Lancelot faced each other. They kissed under the moonlight, and at that moment, a single cloud appeared in the sky. A small black lonely cloud, and very thin through it. A very quiet lightning flashed as if Zeus was looking at his son and saying, "Choose. Is this the path you have chosen to love that cannot be hidden?" Whispers spread. Nights divide in two. It was divided, some said the king's honor, some said the voice of the heart. Arthur learned the truth one day when he picked up the Excalibur. The sword trembling was silent. It was cold, as if even his father didn't want to talk anymore. At that moment Arthur understood. The greatest battles are won or lost with the heart, not the sword. Arthur's half-sister, Morgan le Fay, was just a name at first. There were no mirrors in Morgan's room because mirrors would lie to him instead. He used bowls. When he looked at the water, what he saw was not just his face, the future, the past, the secrets in the hearts of others, and most of all that blue and white that beats in Arthur's chest. He listens to the sky, but mine is silent. From that moment on, the plans began. First trial: poison C mixed with a glass of wine. His lips didn't burn when he drank an invisible drop of Arthur. Excalibur's scabbard kicked in the venom vein. It ran through his veins and evaporated in seconds. Arthur just said the wine was a little sour. And he went on. 2 trials was a trap when an enchanted sword fell into Arthur's hands. When Arthur raised the sword, the sky responded, a lightning bolt descended. To dust the fake sword. Arthur eyebrows. Why is this sword so much? Morgan didn't give up, but with each failure he learned a stronger, darker magic. But no matter what he does, something stops him. One night he trapped his mind clouded in a moment when his will was broken. Arthur unwittingly. He was united with his half-sister Morga. The boy born that night is like an ordinary baby. It looked like it, but when she opened her eyes, she didn't have the same blue and white glow in her. In its place was a dark, cold, almost black shade. Its name was Mord. As the boy grew up, everyone said how much he looked like Arthur. But the religious smile to Mordor was different. When he smiled, it was not the sky, but the shadows on the ground. He would answer, Arthur invited him to the round table, and you are of my blood. Mordred sat down, no spark in the middle of the table, just very light. There was an almost inaudible crackle, as if the table said be careful instead of saying welcome. He said, years passed, Mordred became a strong knight, his sword was fast, his mind was faster. Merlin Arthur Assen came once old, tired, but still. There was that old shine in your eyes. Listen, my son, your blood is from the sky, he said. It comes from your face, but his blood is your shadow, and how bright the shadows are the light. The brighter the sharper the knife camel. The crack of the grass was now visible. And for the first time in a long time, the sky whispered a single word. S.E. Arthur looked up at the sky and answered very lightly. I was already elected, but everyone knew this answer is just the beginning. The real answer would come when the sword spoke. 2 armies descended on the Tiger Plain. The air grid is as if the clouds are low, as if even the gods are bent down to watch. The knights of the round table were missing one by one, and in the end, the 2 figures faced each other. Arthur and Mordred, father and son, light and shadow purple. His sword curls like black smoke, while Arthur's sword is still blue and white with veins. He was shining with them. Arthur made one last move. Hexen stabbed his chest. The black shadow in his purple dread eyes suddenly picked up, then he gathered his last strength. 2 screams rose at the same time, a victory that landed on Arthur's stomach. A farewell Mordred wound piled up. Arthur fell to his knees, Excalibur still. He still had it, but it was staying. For the first time, the judge did not work because this wound was from the father. It was a wound that went to the son, not blood, but fate was flowing. The sky thundered one last time. This time, a long, deep, bitter noise seems to be looking at the son of Zeus and he was saying, you have endured now, rest now. Now he raised his head and looked at the sky. And smiled very slightly, thank you, Dad. Then his eyes closed, but the story didn't end there, because the sky was still watching and lightning will never go out completely if Britain experiences its darkest hour again one day. If a boat emerges from the fog and the sky cracks again, it belongs to Zeus. His son will return and lightning will speak again that day, because the story does not end here. Because some legends don't die, they just sleep.